If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Now, I want to talk to you about Andrew. Andrew is a predator, pervert, freak, lunatic. He has been, for the longest time, coddled, closeted, coveted, I guess, protected by his mother for these many years. She was his favorite. Maybe because, have you noticed, he doesn't look like them. He doesn't have that equine Windsor face. You notice that? Harry doesn't either. Well, Harry, look at Major James Hewitt. You ever seen Harry? Go online, look at Google, side by side. You don't have to be a Mendelian geneticist to see this one. I mean, this is... Well, I ask you, who was Henry Herbert? Henry Herbert was the 7th Earl of Carnarvon, and he was known as also Lord Porchester, or Porchy, who was a very close friend of Queen Elizabeth. It was his groom, and he was involved in horse racing and served as her racing manager. I'll bet you. Hi-oh, silver indeed. He later lived in Highclere Castle, now famous as filming location for Downton Abbey, and she really thought the world of him. And when you were married to this cad, this horrible, vile Prince Philip, okay, who said one time that his dream was to come back in the next life as some type of a virus to wipe out humankind. Well, that's who. And they believe, by the way, the reason why I'm saying this is that they believe this is Andrew's daddy. That's right, my friends. They believe this be Andrew's daddy. Now, let's talk about this. First, you must understand this. Andrew is not just a liar, he's demented. For example, a person who is psychotic, I'm not saying he's psychotic, but if you talk to anybody who's psychotic, and by the way, if you've been in radio, you do it every day. And I don't mean the callers, I mean people you work with. But psychotic people believe what they're saying. They're not lying to you. I mean, he just says things and believes things, and because he believes he's special. And when he decided that he was going to go on TV and say, "Oh, I'll take care of the Virginia Giuffre thing," they said, "Oh, no. He goes, "Oh, yes, I am. I'm going to talk to them with my BS because I'm smarter than you are. I'm attractive. People love me." And he came up with this idea that he says he doesn't sweat. Remember that? They set him up. They talk about the woman who interrogated him. They make her out to be the great Torquemada of her time. And they said, is this a picture of you in Virginia? No, that's not at all. Because, well, they said that you were dancing. You said, no, I don't perspire. Now, bromidrosis is this disease or the situation where you perspire, profusely. This is the inverse of that. But let me tell you a little bit about Andrew. And let me tell you if this gives you an idea of how sick he was. Did anybody, do you know when I mentioned the teddy bear ritual, do you know what I'm talking about? See, in UK, everybody knows this. They know everything. One of the most widely reported stories, verified by a lot of people, is Andrew's collection of teddy bears. Do you have any collections of bears? Well, I don't, but you might, maybe when, maybe hearkening back to your time as a child. Well, former staff have said that he keeps dozens of them arranged on his bed in a precise and tight formation. If a maid placed one even slightly out of alignment, it triggered him and he went berserk. Some accounts describe a laminated card showing the exact positioning of the bears. And there's a kind of a ritualized order, especially in a grown man well into his adulthood, who raised eyebrows inside palace walls. And it suggested, by the way, something deeper, this almost a pathological punctilious focus on order and control. Next, his obsession with titles. Titles. Sometimes we don't really understand that here. One time I worked in radio with a guy who said, I'm not a screener, I'm a producer. I said, well, what is a producer? He said, I don't know, but it's not a screener. Because I think screening is probably one of the most important things available. And I said, well, when you produce, what does one do? Look, I said, well, give me an example of, he never could answer the question. But if you called him a screener or anything else, he would go berserk because he's a producer. And then there's executive producer. Now, if there's nobody else called producer, why even bother with the executive? For example, executive lawnmower. Well, there's only one. Executive implies there are others where you have to distinguish it. But Andrew went crazy. He was obsessed. If somebody said even friends referred to your mother instead of the queen, he went berserk. If they slipped or forgot the proper style of address, he went berserk. Even at private dinners, even among acquaintances, the insistence on formality, he went, keyword, berserk. Why? It's all he has. Because he's living a lie. By the way, you know who his love was? Koo Stark. Koo Stark. She did some nudie stuff. That was his love. Same thing with John Kennedy Jr. Whom did he love? Daryl Hannah. Loved her. Jackie O said, oh, no. I don't want to display, how do I say this? John Kennedy Jr., people love this guy. This guy, there's a lot of secrets there, my friend. I'm just telling you. And that love affair with Caroline Bessette, that whole group, there's something strange with them. And, they said, hey, boy, that John Kennedy Jr., he sure was in good shape. I said, that's right. And he always wanted to tell you about that. He always wanted to show you that, too. What do you mean? Well, he was walking around half naked. Do you hear stories about the gym? Yeah. And there's something about Kennedy men wanting to always show you how ripped they are. I'm just saying. There's something very odd about that. Another one, remember this. Ready for the lunatic. Keep an eye on Schlossberg. Jack, Caroline's son, off the rails. This guy is so out of it. So remember, mark my words. Mark my words. There ain't been nobody. Can you mention most of the, poor Patrick. Remember Patrick would show up at the Congress at 3 o'clock in the morning in his underwear. He wanted to vote. That happens to me all the time. That's called Ambien, my friend, believe it or not. And he's a good, I like him. He's done a lot for mental health. But most of them are very quiet. You know how many actual Kennedy cousins? Like 3,000. In-laws, new people, great-grand. You never hear about any of them except Jack Schlossberg. So sometimes, to go back to the story, sometimes royalty, and that's as close to royalty as we're going to get, it makes people crazy. But he loved Koo Stark. That's where he got the name Randy Andy. Then they said he would switch personas. They said he could talk to you 1 minute, and he actually had a very good military career, and he could snap. Go really dark, really fast. Really fast. He had these hyper-specific demands. On foreign trips, they were reported he had to have, you remember they had, who were the ones plays like the famous no red M&Ms, was it Aerosmith or, those stories about the writers.
Jennifer Lopez, all these crazy demands that have to be in their dressing room. They have to only have yellow roses. Or, take out all the M&Ms except for the red ones or something like that. I'm like that, too. I admit, like heat. I have to have heat on. Things like that. Because I'm rather... Water.
Water. I'm priggish. and punctilious.
But it was always like, I need 2 bottles of Pellegrino and a glass half filled with apple juice.
Well, he did this, by the way. His whole thing was it had to be always room temperature. Always had to be room temperature in the whole bit. And then, here's a story, too. He said, I always have to stay in hotels. Now, listen to me. They said, wait a minute, you've got residences. And all. By the way, Keir Starmer, he's out, too, because he went ahead and approved Andy a lot of this. Anyway, so he said, they go to a hotel, they said, sir, no, stay here. Stay, you for security. He said, oh, no. I want to go to hotels. Why do you think you wanted to go to hotels? To bring in the hookers. He brought in hookers. No, it wasn't normal. It was, legions of them. It's like battalions. And it made the security staff wonder, look, this is not what we signed in for. Are we acting as basically accomplices to this? And he did this repeatedly. When it came to the nightlife, he went berserk. They kept saying, listen, for his safety. You know, people thought the whole IRA, provisional IRA, that was put to bed, the troubles. They're not too sure. When you're, when you're part of the security detail for this lunatic, you've got to go out of your way. And he didn't care. But the Queen, for the longest time, said, it's tough.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.